you search the entire world for a good idea. And there aren't that many good ideas, right? I mean, Apple was a good idea 20 years ago, or Amazon was a good idea, and Bitcoin is a good idea. And a good idea is something that could tend to 100x its money. So if you think about all of the things you discovered in the last 30 years that could increase by a factor of 10x or 100x, maybe 10x, and by the way, Bitcoin is 10x in the 5 years since I got in the business, but think about all that, and then ask yourself the question: should you put 2% of your money into a good idea? Are you going to have 49 other equally good ideas? Okay, you can put 10% of your money. If you put 10% of your money into an idea that 10x is, you double your money. But of course, is everything else? Does that mean that you're going to put 90% of your money into a not good idea? So my issue there is, if I think about my history as an investor, my number one regret is if you found a good idea, you wish you had bought more.
Right, that's right, always.
And you wish you'd never sold. Mm-hmm. So if I can spirit you back 20 years and give you the chance to buy Apple or Amazon or Bitcoin.
Which I didn't buy any of those.
Are you going to give advice to someone they should put 2 or 3 or 5% of their portfolio in? It's like, I think if you're going to do it, you should put in an amount of money that changes your life.
Yeah.
So, well, look, if you're diversifying and you find a brilliant idea, maybe you put 5 to 10% of your wealth in it because you want to stay diversified. But, Jeff Bezos didn't get rich by having 5% of his assets in Amazon and selling 95% of his Amazon stock as soon as he could, right? So Steve Jobs,
I think he had
Larry Ellison, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bernard Arnault, they don't get rich by selling 95% of their good ideas and keeping the last 5, or by selling 90%. So I just think when you find, if you're pitching someone a digital real estate fund, and if real estate's going to go up 7% a year and Bitcoin's going to go up 30% a year, then you don't want it to be 10% Bitcoin and 90% real estate. It's just a little bit better than everything else in the world. Why not put it half and half?
Yeah.
And then why don't you deliver 20% gains a year when the entire rest of the real estate industry gives you 7? Because if it's a bad idea, it ought to be 0 and 100% real estate.
Yeah.
And if it's a good idea, then you might as well go 50-50,
right?
Because that way you're giving someone juiced real estate 3 times as good as every other real estate investment in the world. I think if it doesn't work and you put 10% of your money into it and it doesn't work, then you just had a dog real estate fund and it failed, right?
Yeah.
So when you have an idea, you either think it's going to work and you might as well put in enough such that you win and everybody gets rich, or don't do it at all. I'm not a big fan of that. I'll give you one more example. Rockefeller invents kerosene.
Yeah.
Kerosene is the most highly distilled form of crude oil. And it's jet fuel. It's rocket fuel, right? It's pure liquid energy. Okay, so a good idea is I build a rocket. I build a rocket ship, I build a jet engine, I build a jet airplane, or maybe I create gasoline or diesel and I give you a car or truck. Those are all good ideas. Henry Ford, Boeing, they did that. What's a conventional idea, safe idea? I put a kerosene lamp in the back of my horse and buggy.
Right.
And I tell all my horse and buggy customers that now they can read a book while they're in the horse and buggy crossing the nation. Or I put a kerosene heater in the back of the buggy because my customers complain about it taking 30 days to go across the Rockies in a buggy, and so I heat them up. And my point is, you don't really want to be the dude that's 2% invested or 3% invested in the revolutionary idea. You want to create the rocket ship. And so in that case, I feel like either don't do it or do it in such a way that it's so much better than everything else in the world that everyone will sell everything else and buy your thing, and everybody lives happily ever after. So that's my view. On the other hand, there's another view of the world, which is the engineer's view of the world, When you build an airplane, you've got the choice of building an airplane in copper, aluminum, or steel, or bronze, or bricks, or wood. And there's a right answer, aluminum, and everything else is the wrong answer. And if you build it in steel, it doesn't fly. And if you build it in clay, it doesn't work, right? You build it in copper, it's not working. So in engineering, there's a right answer for the plane. It was aluminum. For bridges, there's a right answer. It's like steel, right? When you're creating a window, there's a right answer, for how what kind of glass you use. And then there's a wrong answer. So engineers are used to asking the question, what's the right answer? How about you want to conduct electricity through a line, copper, or titanium, or you can pick 100 metals, but there's one metal that works better than the other metals. So if you're an engineer and there's a right answer, you don't diversify, you pick the solution, because otherwise you die. But when you don't know the answer, when you're not sure whether copper's going up or aluminum's going up or steel is going up or a bushel of corn is going up in price, and nor does your customer know the answer.
Pick them all.
Well, you can create a service, which is I'll just give you a diversified mix of all of them, and that justifies your business and you charge a lot of money for it. But, I think that diversification only makes sense when there is no right answer. It's like the joke example I use is, you're on a sinking ship and there's 10 lifeboats, and one of them, is watertight and the other have holes in the bottom of them. Find the one that's watertight, put the entire family on that one, and then you live, and pick the one that isn't watertight. You're going to die, right? You're not going to diversify across a bunch of imperfect components.
Were you looking 4 or 5 years ago or before that? Were you looking for something other than what you were doing?
During the COVID lockdowns in the middle of 2020, we had $500 million of cash, and the bankers took the interest rate to zero. And we were
500.
Yeah,
$500 million of cash.
$500 million, and so it's like you have a $500 million real estate portfolio, and the mayor of the city unilaterally reduces your rents to zero and tells you they're gonna rent control the rent to zero for the next 5 years because that's the right thing to do because we're in a crisis, right? There's COVID crisis, and if you don't like it, then you must not be a good citizen, right?
Right.
There's something wrong with you, right? You're just insensitive capitalist, and the right thing to do is we just reduce the rents to zero forever, which is easy to do with somebody else's money, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened during COVID, right? I mean, we literally did it with rents,
yeah.
And we did it with capital. So when that happened, if that were to happen to you, if someone said, I'm reducing your rents unilaterally to zero forever, and you could sell the property and move to a different state or move to a different city, you might very well do that, right? So we had $500 million worth of property. It was called Treasury bills. It was unilaterally reduced to a value of zero per year. And I think Jerome Powell gave a speech, and he said very famously, he said, we're not even thinking about raising the interest rates until the year 2024 or 2025.
Right. Repeatedly he said it.
I didn't need to hear that twice. So I thought I better go find something else to buy other than Treasury bills. So we started thinking, could we buy a stock portfolio? Could we buy a portfolio of art? Could we buy some real estate? Could I buy a fraction of a sports team? Should I buy a bunch of gold, or should I buy a bunch of digital gold? And by the process of elimination, we went through all those things.
Had you been introduced to Bitcoin prior to that?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, I'd never really seriously thought about it.
Okay.
Right? So I went through the process of elimination, and I started thinking maybe I should buy gold. But then I thought what I'd really like is something that feels like gold, a non-sovereign store of value bearer instrument, and I like something which is the best cross between gold and Google. I wanted a digital monopoly on money, digital gold. And I thought, well, this crypto stuff looks like it's digital gold, a crypto coin, 21 million crypto coins, because the appeal of gold is it's scarce and desirable as a store of value. And And the appeal of crypto is I can teleport it and I can self-custody it and I can program it. So then I just started thinking, well, what's the crypto network which is most like gold? And I eventually decided Bitcoin was digital gold. And so we bought Bitcoin because, yeah, gold was the best idea of the 19th century. And arguably, if you wanted portable capital, you wanted portable property, you wanted money for the past 5,000 years, right? Gold was generally a pretty popular idea. But in the 21st century, what you'd like is something that's as desirable as gold, but you want it to be programmable. You want to move it at the speed of light. You want to put it on an iPhone. You know, and the thing about Bitcoin, which is better, in addition to being programmable and digital, was that it's absolutely hard capped at 21 million coins. And so the inflation rate of Bitcoin is 0. It was pretty obvious to me over the long time horizon, as the limit goes from 0 to infinity, the inflation rate is 0.
Why is it 0?
Because there's 21 million. That's all there's ever going to be.
Okay.
With Bitcoin, you know that there'll never be more than 21 million Bitcoin. And in public company parlance, you would refer to that as the fully diluted share count. The fully diluted Bitcoin count between now and a million years.
There can't be any more shares.
It's like if you knew you were going to 21 million shares.
Yeah.
It's like when I'm valuing your company, I want to know, well, what's the total number of shares that can ever be issued between now and 100 years from now, right? I don't really care how many shares you issued this week or this month. I just want to know, are you going to 21 million shares? Or are you going to 2.1 trillion shares?
Right.
Right? And so the fully diluted Bitcoin count was 21 million. And the significance of that is that means the inflation rate's 0. But the inflation rate on gold is 2%. And the fully diluted gold count is infinite, because if I keep increasing the amount of gold by 2% a year, that's infinite amount of gold. If you want to figure out practically how you value it, well, when you increase the supply of something by 2% a year, that means that you're doubling the supply every 36 years. That means the economic half-life of your money is 36 years. That means the half-life is 36 years. That means you're going to live 70 years. Okay, well, what's the half-life if the inflation rate is 0? Infinity. So what's your life expectancy if the inflation rate is 0? Your life expectancy is infinite. You're immortal. You're living for 1 billion trillion years.
Like that idea.
0 is 1 billion trillion years. You're a god. 2% is you're going to die. Half of you dies in 36 years. The other half dies in the next 36 years. Maybe you make 100 years and you're pretty much done for, right? And so it's the difference between a mortal life of a human being versus economic immortality. We can dismiss it if we just think in the next 12-month time frame. But, you know, if you're an engineer, it's like, well, what's the difference between you lose 2% of your energy every cycle versus you lose none of your energy every cycle? None of your energy every cycle is perpetual motion. You last forever. 2% of your energy every cycle, and you spend it 100 times, there's nothing left, right? You burn out the motor. Okay, so I like the idea of gold, but digital gold is better. And how much better? Infinitely better, right? Infinitely better. So in 2020, we settled on Bitcoin as digital gold. We decided we're going to sell our $500 million worth of treasury bills, and we're going to buy $500 million worth of Bitcoin.
First purchase was how big?
250 million.